Hello, campus. Welcome to another one in another chapter in our course on CSS. This chapter is all this material, but because of how long it is, we're just going to break it into chunks and then maybe put it in a different chapter or in a different video. Now, quick one. To add a comment in CSS, you use this. You start with this and then you close it with this. So let's go ahead and start. Now let's talk about some CSS properties. In the last chapter, I explained that the prerequisite. I explained the prerequisite for CSS. I told you the rules and the do's and don'ts. Now let's start coding, please. CSS is a rule-based language. For example, when you write this first CSS code .Godzilla, you know Godzilla is a class. Then the color is blue, and then you have this Ash Godzilla, the color is blue, and then Godzilla color blue. In CSS1, Godzilla is a class. CSS2, it is an ID. You can see it is an ID, it is a class. But here, because there's no dot or hash, it's probably a tag. In CSS2 is a tag. Hope you remember this. Also, we have this this curly bracket. Whenever you write what you want to style, then you put the curly bracket and you write the properties inside. These little things are properties. They are name value pairs. It encloses your rules. Your rules is like a group of properties. For our great bricklayer should paint, and yeah. The name value pair in the curly bracket is called the property, as I said, and it must always end with a semicolon. You can see mine is ending with a semicolon. If you don't put it in the browser, will probably not render it. CSS has a lot of properties. You should go to this link. Go and visit this link to see the list of properties and explore them. But we will explore the basic ones. To ease learning, I've classified the properties to those that deal with text and those that deal with containers, including the image tag. Now let's talk about the text relevant properties. The first thing I want you to know is the font family. To make a website stand out, you will decide to use a different font from the system font that you know. This font creates a unique brand perception for your company's customer. So if you're working with a company, that company may decide to start using a particular font that looks unique to that company. For example, we all know that Instagram has a unique font, and whenever you see that font, you already know it's Instagram. So there are 4 main things you should know about fonts. First of all, font can be set for different tags. But to make your website use a single font, set it on the body tag. The body tag is the parent of all other building tags. So once you set it on the body tag, automatically the font will apply to every other tag. This way you don't have to set it for each tag. Look at this CSS code. I set this font family. Let's go back to our code and create let's create a different folder. Let's call it chapter 2. And then inside this folder, let's go ahead and create an index.html file. And let's just call it example1.html file. I'm going to upload this code to GitHub so you can see it on that same link that I sent the other day. So let's paste the boilerplate. I have my boilerplate saved. When you see doc type, there it is. So let's paste our boilerplate and let's go ahead and write our blog. Let's the king testimony, something like that. No, the cream. You know what? Whenever you want to write a long text in HTML and you don't want to start guessing, just for example purpose, go ahead and type lorem. So lorem, it will suggest you just press enter. It will write a very long text of a couple of words. You don't really need to know what it means. Just put it there. So let's go ahead and render this. I'd like us to use this. Let's close this. Let's create an index.css so that all our CSS file will be inside this guide. And then let's go ahead and link into this. Let's go ahead and link it. We won't be using the style tag, or we might, but let's just go and link it index.css. So let's copy the part of this guide so we can use it in our browser. Alright then, good. You can see we have this set. So let's say we want to change the font. To change the font, you can just go and set the border property and set the font family. The font family will help you change the fonts. So let's go ahead and locate our index.css file. Let's set the body property. This time we're styling the tag called body, and then send the font family. It will suggest a couple of fonts to you. Choose the one you want. Let's choose Arial for starters. Let's go back to our file and refresh. This is how Arial looks. So the one I usually prefer is Cambria. That's the only font I prefer. But I'll teach you how to get custom fonts from a website, Google Fonts. This is it. Okay, let's go back to our course. Number 2, when using system fonts, which is the one that comes with the computer, you will usually need to specify more than one font. You can see Cambria, Chochin, Georgia, Times New Roman Serif. The reason why we do this is because browsers, this is so that browsers that don't have a particular font can use another in the list. So it will start with Cambria. If you have Cambria, you use it. Some browser may not have Cambria, so it will move to the next one. So when it checks everything and it sees it doesn't have it, it will just go to the default font. But VS Code will naturally suggest relevant fonts. If you look at this, VS Code suggested this particular series of fonts because they look alike. So you can't put a sans serif font with a serif font, if you know what I mean. Now the third rule is that when using system fonts, you will usually need to specify more than one font. Okay, I've said that. The third rule is you might need to add a font that is not part of the system, such as Lato. Oh, I love Lato. Most of Monagro is built in Lato, a beautiful body font. To do this, you can either dynamically load the font by specifying its download URL, or manually downloading the font and including its part. Yeah, I think we're going to do that. So we can download a font from Google Fonts and include the part of that font to our stuff. So I'm just going to show you the font now. So let me set up my internet. Yeah, as you can see, this particular CSS file is setting font from Google's stuff. So the first thing you need to do is to define a new property called font face. Font face will help you set a new variable for a particular font. So we are creating a custom font, and the font is located in this particular URL. Let me go to the URL of my browser so you can see it. Turn on my data. Good. You can see the font. You can see the font dynamically imported from Google Fonts. This is from Google's fonts. And let's just go ahead and put it in our code. So you can see the font face, custom font, and then in your body, when you set your font family, instead of listing all these fonts, you list the name of your custom font, and then it will just take effect. Let's go to our HTML file and use this particular stuff. Alright, then let's do that. So let's go back to our file and see how it's going to look like. So I'm going to refresh now. Now this thing is what it's going to do is to load the font dynamically from the browser. Okay, you can see that it has loaded the font. Let me see if it took effect. So let's just remove everything and see if it actually happened. Okay, it didn't happen. Whenever it doesn't happen, that's probably due to the network. Okay, alright, we'll get to that shortly. Yes, another thing you can do instead of loading it from a URL is to load it from a local file that you have. So instead of loading it from a URL, you can just load it from a local file. That way you will have already downloaded the file as a .ttf file. Most fonts can be downloaded as a .ttf file. TTF means true type font, I think. And then you can just locate that font, include it as part of your project, and you are set up that way. Okay. Alright, so let's now. I'll first of all, I would like to introduce you to Google Fonts. to start. So let's go ahead and locate Google Fonts. Go to your computer and type fonts.google.com. And then you take to Google Fonts. Google Fonts has like I think 1,500 or something like that, or 15,000. A lot of fonts anyway. Look at all the fonts you can use with Google Fonts. See this Montserrat now, very beautiful. Let's see if you can use it. So click on it. You can download it. Look at this place here. You can download it here in the top right corner of the page. You can download the font family and include it, or we can just load it with we can load it directly with the URL. I want to show you how to load the font from URL. Okay. Okay, I just downloaded the montserrat.zip file, but before I go into that, I just want to like show you how to like load it from URL. Okay. Alright, okay. While I figure that out, let me go ahead and show you how to load it from file. So let's locate the file we just downloaded. I think it's going to be under download and under Montserrat. Let's open it. And then there is a lot of like, there's this variable stuff. But let's look at the static ones. I think this regular, Montserrat regular, is going to be our guy. So let's move in, out. And okay, alright then, I think we have done that already. So we're going to have to locate the Montserrat guy. Okay, this is him here. So let's rename him. So let's name him Mons. So let's copy this and move it to our folder. Go to VS Code. Let's open this in containing folder. Under chapter 2, let's paste it here. Montserrat monsters. So under this URL, instead of writing this, let's just come here and write mons.css here. Yes. So we have set our font, so it should show us mons now. You can see that it's showing us mons now. So we can set custom fonts for our website, either by static file or by loading it from a URL. Right, you can go ahead and read this. Now there are two main types of design. Yes, let me tell you this thing. You can get custom font from Google Fonts. It's free, but while you explore numerous fonts, be careful not to get overexcited. As I love to tell devs, there are two types of designs. There are designs that last and designs that don't. Just because a curly font looks beautiful on first sight doesn't mean the user will love waking up to it every morning when he wants to order for food. Imagine having a curly font as the default font on your phone. Your default font on your phone is Roboto, and that's because it lasts. It's designed to last, not to impress. So a standard font like Roboto, just as I said, is used in another phone that is designed to last, not to impress. This doesn't mean you shouldn't explore anyway. Remember to be creative, but consider long-term adaptability. If you look at Instagram, at the top left of Instagram, you will see a text, Instagram, written with curly font. But the other text, maybe from post, is not written with the same font for a reason. Because that font is beautiful for you to see on first sight, but it's not designed to last. It's not designed to be with you every day. You get tired of it. Some fonts, another point, some fonts are more suitable for either heading or body, not both. For instance, I prefer to use Lato for body and Playfair for heading. Let me show you an example. Let me locate a Lato font. I think I should have a Lato font. Alright then. Okay, let's just continue then. So there are some fonts that are suitable for heading and there are some fonts that are suitable for body. Let me show you one from this Google Fonts website. You can see this font now. Imagine using this font as the default font for your phone. When you first see it, it looks beautiful. But imagine waking up to it every day. It's not very interesting. But this one on the other hand is very interesting. But you can use exactly. So imagine, for example, I would prefer to use Playfair for heading. Let me show you Playfair. Google doesn't have Playfair. I think it has Lato. This is Lato. Yes, I prefer to use this for body and Playfair display. Yes, for heading. You can see it creates some kind of a distinction like that. Alright then. So be careful with how you use your fonts. Be very careful with how you use your fonts. Okay. Now the next thing I want us to talk about, the next property I want us to talk about is the color property. This is usually used to set the text color. For example, when you write something like this, it sets the color of the text. Let me show you an example. If you look at, let's see, example 1, okay, I think we are there already, which is this one, gig testimony. Let's assume we want to change this first, this heading to blue. Although that's not a very good idea, but let's assume we want to change it. So we need to find a way to identify the heading. We can identify it by tag, by class, or by ID. But we don't want to identify it by tag. For example, I can just write something like H1 and make the color, like this text color, blue. And then refresh and to do that. But what if I want to add another H1 in the future? It will also make it blue, which is not what I want. So let me uniquely identify this guy. So let's call it HD, the class. Because it is identified by tag, a class, it needs to start with dots. So let's call it HD and go back to our code. And it will be colored blue, which is what we want. So there are different ways to set color in CSS. The first one is generic colors. These are colors that are recognized by the system, such as red, blue, yellow, white, black, and so on and so forth. Let me show you that. If you look at the code, our code, sorry, let me close most of this stuff. It's just too much. Alright then. So if you look at this, we have blue and you can also set red. You can also set maybe gold and so on and so forth. If you want to see the list of fonts, the list of suggestions you have, especially when you don't know what to do, just click Ctrl then space. So hold Ctrl then space to show you Alice blue. Look at all the generic fonts that we can add as color that you already recognize. So you can use any one. There's even this tomato one. Let's see how it looks. Alright, that's good. So generic fonts. Next, RGB. I know you guys probably, some of you are familiar with this RGB concept, especially from, if you're not 11, you are familiar with it from physics, this old stuff. And then RGB will take 3 arguments, the red, green, blue. These arguments usually vary from 0 to 255. For example, 255 red, full red plus full green plus full blue will give you white. When you add red, green, and blue together, it should give you white. But only full red plus no green plus no blue is red. Same applies to all this. But when you add green and blue together, you get cyan. And you add all of this together, and you get this. So you can manipulate the proportion of red, green, and blue. Just type RGB and then type the red you want, maybe 255. And then press tab to move to the next one. Then let's give this one 0. And then let's give this one 0. So our color should be red. So if we go back to our stuff, it is red. And then let's see if we want to set this magenta one. So we can come here and set magenta. But to be more poetic, you can just write something like something more custom for yourself, a more custom tag, a more custom like font. Let's see what 100, 110 is going to look like. So using this, you can like change the color to whatever you want. If you are not still sure, just put your mouse over the color. It will show you something that you can use to like move it around and just change the value from there. So let's see. I think this is near beautiful. No. So that way you just set the color on the go. Alright then. So yeah, the third way you can set color is RGBA. Unlike RGB, this one includes an A property, a fourth argument, the A. That A stands for alpha and the value is from 0 to 1. When it is 0, the stuff is transparent. It's completely transparent. But when it is 1, it is completely opaque. Opaque is the opposite of transparent. So let me show you red. Let me not show you red. Let me show you 255. That's red. Let's just use red. And then you include the fourth property 1. Remember, 1 means opaque. That is opposite of transparent. So let's come here and it will show us red for sure. So let's reduce this to like give it like 50% transparency. Change it to 0.5. And then you can see it's transparent. So when I give it 0.1, it will be so transparent. Look at that. So what if I give it 0.001? It should be a little bit gone. Still a little bit visible. It's not visible again. So that's how you can make something transparent in CSS. Alright, the next property we're going to is font weight. You're probably familiar with this. You have done the B tag, that's the bold tag. You can also add weight to a font. It's just like bolding the font, but it's like changing the thickness of the text. Yeah. But I don't usually recommend it for a reason. I'll tell you why. Yes. Yeah. Let me tell you something about this RGBA before we go on. I normally use it to add like a touch of a color to my background. Most people like setting white as the background of their page, but I don't fancy it at all. Why don't you set it with a tone of blue? If blue is the primary color of the website you are developing, set that white to have a tone, a teeny tiny tone of blue in the background. So let's go and do that. I can't style the body. Instead, I'm going to style the Oga of the tag, which is HTML. So let's come here and then just type HTML. So let's type the background color. I haven't touched the background color yet, but we'll get there. RGBA. So let's give it the normal white. Let's give it blue. So that's going to be 0 red, 0 green, or full blue. But let's give it 0.1, and let's see how it's going to be. You can see it has like a touch of blue, but the touch is too much. So let's give it like 0.001 to make it more poetic. It has like a touch of blue. So if I set the text color of my H tag to be blue, it will have some kind of like a blend, and then you have something like this. So it's adding like a tone of blue to the background to make it look a little bit more interesting. But you can use some default ones like lavender, which is what we use for Monagri. We use for Monagri's background. Lavender just makes everything more clearer now. Okay, I think you get that. Alright, font weight is like changing the boldness of the stuff of your text. Now you probably won't need this property, but let's work with it a little bit. HD color text blue. Don't worry, I don't need you. Alright then, let's set the font weight. The smallest one is 100 and the largest one is 900. Well, we have some named property like normal. I think normal is 300, and then we have bold. Let's see how bold is going to look like. Doesn't really change that much. A lot of bolder. Doesn't really change that much. Let's give it the full stuff. Doesn't really change that much. and then change it a little bit and reduce it to 100. So you probably don't need this font weight. When you use H, it will give you just the right amount of font weight. So in an attempt to don't over engineer your website, don't unnecessarily style things, right? Just do the things that are necessary. Use H1, use P, those things, those guys know what they are doing when they created H1, H2, H3. So stick to them and use them when you can. Alright then. Okay. The next one we'll be talking about is font size. This is used to change the size of your text to a particular measurement. For instance, you might need to change the size of your heading text. Like I said, you don't always need to change the size. The size is usually perfect, so you can adjust to any screen you have. But let's say you want to change its font size. You can just come here and type font size of the size you want, 20 pixels. Don't worry, I'm going to teach you what pixels means shortly. Let's just take the code. So let's see how 20 pixels look. Small. I wonder how 200 pixels will look. Whoa, it's very big. So you can use that to change the text font size. Now we have reached one of the main parts of CSS, length. Let's talk about length in CSS. Remember SI units from school? Well, length in CSS have units too. Let's explore them. We have two categories of length units in CSS. We have the absolute and the relative. Absolute units are fixed lengths. A length expressed in any of these units will appear exactly that size, irrespective of factors like the screen size and so on and so forth. Imagine you create something like this, and it looks big on the screen size. When you take it to like another screen, like your mobile, you are viewing the website from your phone, it will look ridiculously huge. That's one of the disadvantages of absolute unit. Once you set a length using absolute unit, it will remain like that on any screen you put it. But let's still see how that works. Some absolute units include centimeters, millimeters, inches. So let's just explore that a little bit. What is 20 centimeters? Whoa, it's huge. I imagine it to be huge. Remember your ruler counting 20 centimeters is kind of weird. I wonder what 20 inches will look like. It should be very huge. Whoa, it is very. Let me zoom out. Even my zoom doesn't capture it. It's very huge. Alright then. For people that are used to measurement like this, will prefer it. And then we have the pixels. Yeah, the pixels, which is very common among developers. We have point and we have pickers. These units are not recommended for users. They do not adjust to changing screen size. Imagine having a heading that looks the same size on mobile and on desktop. That's disgusting. However, they can be used if you know the exact screen size you're using your app. For example, I don't know if you have visited one of these old websites where even if you are viewing it on your phone, it will still show as if it's on your laptop. Then it will not ask you that do you want to see the website, the mobile version of the app. Then you say yes. They will not take you to another website that will start with m dot something 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 something. Yeah, people that develop that website probably developed it using absolute units, so they know that the size, the font size and everything is not going to adjust as you scale it up or scale it down. Nevertheless, pixels, though is a absolute unit, is still preferred because it adjusts to the screen resolution. In fact, most beginners and novices use it, but pros prefer relative unit. Well, I use it now, but anyway, I'll show you what relative unit is, and I think you'll find it interesting. Relative units are these units specify a length that is relative to another length property. Imagine automatically changing the text size as we move from mobile to desktop. That's awesome. That's what you call a responsive design. Well, partly a responsive design because there are other things that contribute to responsiveness. A responsive design is a design that looks good in big screen, small screen, whatever screen size you put it. Some relative units include the EM unit, the ephemeral unit, which is an EM unit, this is an awesome unit. It is relative to the font size of the parent tag, like a multiple of the font size. For example, let me just prove it to you, enough talking. Let's copy this and take it to our code. To make things easier, let's just create another file, example2.html, and let me get the boilerplate. Let's take out my boilerplate again. I don't have my boilerplate again. Alright then, let's just like create it from scratch. Doc type, then we define the HTML, and then we define the head, and then we define the body. So this is my boilerplate. Let me copy that again. And then let's bring this code and replace the body with it. Now you can see, what did I say about EM unit? EM unit is what? Relative to the font size of the parent tag. So who is the parent tag exactly? I've told you what parent and child means in HTML. The P tag, which is what we want to start, will have a font size of 1 times 12, which is 12 pixels. How did I get that? Look at the P tag. Who is its parent? Div. But div doesn't have a font size, so you move to the next parent. This div, it doesn't have a font size. Move to the next parent. Body has a font size of 12 pixels. 1 EM is what we said. So 1 times whatever is the font size of this parent is what to use. Assuming we use 2 EM, it will be 2 times whatever is the size of the parent, which is what? 24 pixels. Let me prove it to you. So this is 1 EM, right? So let's copy this and go to our browser and replace this with this. You can see, hello world, we are live. The font size of this guy is 12 pixels. Let's inspect this code using the developer tools installed on your browser. Click Ctrl-Shift-I, and then go ahead and click this stuff. You see it on your own browser too. Then hover, put your mouse over that stuff. It will tell you the size of the stuff, of the font size and everything. So let's click that and just go over to computed. Yeah, that's it there. Font size of 12 pixels. But let's close this part. Alright then. So let's change it to 2 EM. What will happen? It will do 2 times 12. If it's 3, 3 times 12. If it's 5 times 12, it should be 60. That means it should be very big. If it's 10, it should be 10 times 12, which is 120 pixels, which is this. Now imagine I change it from EM and I manually write 120 pixels. It shouldn't change. It should give me the same thing. You can see the same thing. So you see the beauty of EM. It will adjust as you change stuff. So by just changing the font size of my body, I can affect the font size of everybody else. I mean, that's wonderful. But people don't use it very much, except experts. Expert developers do. And I'm also considering using it too. I think it's a very nice stuff. I think I'm going to consider using it from now on. EM ephemeral unit is quite awesome. Alright, I think you understand what EM means now. But let me show you something. Look at this code. This code is a little bit of an upgrade to the former code. But let's see how it works. But you'll be wondering, I set 1 EM. Is this still going to use 12 pixels? No, remember EM is in relativity to the parent. So let's start again. Who is the parent of P? Div. But unlike before, this div now has a font size of 16 pixels. So this font size is going to be 1 times 16, which is what? 16 pixels. So let's go back to the code and refresh. It will give us something of 16. Let me prove it to you. If I change this to 18, it shouldn't affect it. You see? No effect. But if I change this one to 11, it should be smaller. You see? So it only works with its direct parent or whoever has the font size. Whoever has the font size out of all its parents. The first person to give him his font size. Alright, the next thing we'll be moving to is REM, root EM. Unlike the normal EM, root EM will always be relative to the parent. Always be relative to the root element. Remember, EM is relative to the parent. Well, REM is relative to the root element, and the root element is the HTML tag. So whatever I set to the HTML tag is what will happen. So if I change this guy to REM, and I come here and I style my HTML tag, and I style the font size to be 5 pixels. That's a very tiny font size. You should choose 5 pixels. You can see that. So that's awesome. In my opinion, RAM seems safer than EM. I think so, because RAM just allows you to like change that of the HTML tag. Just EM can be affected by any parent that has a font size, so you can't really predict when someone will just hijack control from you. But RAM, the HTML tag is always in control. Alright, let's move to another type of unit in relative under relative unit, and the other type we're talking about is the viewport. I love this particular unit. Viewport is in relative to the size of your screen. When I say viewport, I mean your screen size. So when I say VW, I mean the viewport width. So when I say the width of something should be 1 VW, I mean it should be 1% of its width of your screen. Let's assume the width of your screen is 50 pixels. Let's say your width of your screen is 50 pixels. So 1% of 50 is what? 0.5 pixels. 10 VW will be 5, and 100% of VW will be 50 pixels. And consequently, to 200 VW is going to be 100 pixels. That's how that works. But let's not just say it. Let's do it. So let's go ahead and create like a div that is having a class name of MJ. And let's do that way. Let's style it from here. I don't want to go and create a CSS file or use that CSS file. Let's style it from here. So let's style the MJ guy. Yeah. So his width now is going to be 100 VW. That's 100% the size of the width of our screen. Now, not the width of any of this guy, but the width of our screen. So the height 100 VH, that is 100% the height of our screen. You should fill everything up, but of course you can't see it anyway because it doesn't have a background color. So it has the same color as your website, so you can't really know that it's there. So let's give it a background color of aqua. Awesome. So you can see it is exactly the width. This guy is causing like a obstruction. Let's comment him out. Let me show you. You can see that 100%. So you can also vary this to maybe like 10% and 10%. So you bring to here. So this is 10%. You can also make it half of this size of your screen. How do you do that? 50%. So you come in 50%. So that's how viewport sizing works. We have done this. We have done this. Yes, percentage. I love this one. It calculates the width or height relative to the parent tag width or height. So when VW does it relative to the screen size, percent does it relative to the parent tag. Let me show you that. Let's assume we were to name this div. Let's name it pcont. That is our parent container. And then let me write this pcont. And then let me set its width to be like 600 pixels. And let me set its height to be like 600 pixels. Now, if I want to set this guy, this other guy here, let me give it a class of cont. I come here and then I identify that cont. And then I give it like a background color so I can see clearly of black. And then I make his width 50%. Now you might be asking 50% of what? 50% of the width of his parent. So who is the parent of this guy? This guy. And who is the parent of this guy? This guy, and that's pcont. And what is his width? 600 pixels. And what is 50% of 600 pixels? That's 300 pixels. And then I set the height to 50% of the height of his parent, and that's still 300 pixels. So let's go back to our code and refresh. You can see, to prove it, inspect it. I'll show you now. You can see 300 by 300. So says it that right? Yeah. So I think we get percent now. Alright, so guys, this is a relatively long part of our course. So I'm going to be stopping here. The next video we're going to talk about the container relevant properties. Thank you very much for being a part of this. Daniel